On this episode of Cultivating Candor, Drew and Marv are going to be looking at teenagers and AI, artificial intelligence, good, bad, or a little bit of both. And then we're going to bring on some Generation Z young men who are going to come and answer some questions about the difference of their generation and Gen Alpha. It will get a little wild, just a heads up. And then we're going to end with Marko Stryker. Marko is an amazing author who has a hope-filled view for working with teens now and in the future. I'm glad you're here with us. Let's go. Hello and welcome back to Cultivating Candor. This is episode 4. Marv Nelson,
Drew Walker,
and we are glad you are with us.
Yes,
Today,
sir.
We have some special things happening because we have some Gen Z that are going to pop up in this room in a little bit.
Crazy. It's going to get wild.
It gets a little wild, but you know what? There was surprisingly a good amount of dialogue about what we're going to be bringing today. So that we're considering that our ruckus report because they're full of ruckus. But today we want to talk about Generation Z and Alpha with AI, artificial intelligence, right? We have some stats for you that I'm going to read from a website that has just given some great study to AI. But Drew, let me just ask you your personal thoughts. As a young millennial, what do you think about artificial intelligence?
I'm wary. And y'all know why I'm wary. Because you watched iRobot. You watched Terminator. What it was like, wasn't like Apollo or something? There's a movie about like they were in space with like an AI or something. It's just like, yes, I understand that it is dependent on programming. But if you work with excellence and program really well, these AI can kind of start to make their own decisions and their own understandings, which is, hey, that's great programming. Unfortunately, AI will soon realize that we are the problem, as God realized we are the problem, thanks to sin in our world. But unfortunately, AI cannot solve the problem of sin without the spiritual component. So if it tries to do it by itself, it's just going to be an annihilation of the human race. Yes, it sounds a little conspiracy theorist. I don't care. I don't trust it.
Yeah.
There's benefit to it, but no, and the whole
Did you know there was an AI priest at one point?
No, there was not.
Oh yeah, where you could go on and ask him questions about the Bible, about Jesus. You can confess your sins to him. It's
good for, I can see Bible trivia, Bible answers. If you're trying to figure out, hey, where, kind of like Google, hey, where is this verse quoted? Okay, cool. But as far as like absolution of sin or like spiritual guidance, I'm like, I don't know if I trust you, bro.
Yeah, the Catholic Church was none too pleased with it, and so they forced it to come down. Good. I'm sure other iterations have popped up, but that one was pretty famous. You know, when you say you're weary, I have from this website, from the Walton Family Foundation, they talk about fear in Generational Z, and it has this statistic where 41% of the Generational Z men and women, that they also have anxiety about artificial intelligence.
It should be higher.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting to see 41%.
Yeah.
Because it's, my generation of millennials, we are essentially video game natives, internet natives.
Yep.
Generation Z is social media, digital native, where everything is digital. You know, the iPhone came out in 2007, which is kind of right in that flow of when Generation Z was coming up. And it's an interesting thing now that Alpha will essentially be an AI native.
Yeah.
And so I think Alpha uses it a little bit more than Gen Z does, or they will.
Yeah, and I mean, it's literally right in their faces as they're coming up through school. Like, it makes total sense that they would be more engaged with AI.
Yeah, and every social media platform now, from Meta to Twitter, X, has an AI component where you can ask AI questions and all these different things.
Is this real? Grok doesn't know. Anyway.
He might now. I mean, the billions of dollars that's going into AI is a significant thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, even in fact, here in Indiana, there's a huge server farm that's going to be built where the old Homer City power plant and the majority of the server processing is going to AI.
I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's why.
The real Terminator will be first in Indiana, Pennsylvania.
So I saw a video about sort of the eco waste that comes from like those big old servers and
Yeah.
stuff. I think it was with Tesla's servers. It was either that or Meta's, but like the people who were right, like pretty close to it, not right next to it, maybe like 50 or so miles away, like they were just dealing with a lot of the fallout from that.
Yep.
And again, there's benefit to technology, and there's always pluses and minuses, but it's just like, well, let's really evaluate what that turnout's going to be, especially in our area. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
we already deal with a lot of stuff. So that's, anyway.
It's true. No,
I don't want to be pessimistic or dooming about it, but it's just like these are things that I find myself concerned about when it comes to it. Now, there is benefit to AI. Like I said, I don't want to be pessimistic.
Yeah.
You had shown me how when you are done with your sermons, how you've gotten all that stuff written out, how AI can help you splice up your sermons into social media, like little clips or stuff like that. And it does a really good job.
It does.
So I had Marv will tell you, I came in, he was telling me that. I had to suck my face like, bro, why are you telling me about AI? But when I saw it, I was like, ooh, I can't argue that. That's really good.
It was good. It was great generative multimedia.
Right.
Where I can upload the sermon video into this one website, and it will generate for me TikTok, Insta, Facebook Reels that are pretty legit, that hit key points of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was a really good job.
Which makes it awesome, but also a little bit more scary, right? Like, what can it do? And the generative nature of AI now, there's so many different opportunities for it, where you can do deep fakes easier than ever.
Super easy.
Where you can make someone's face superimposed on something, someone doing something harsh, bad, illegal, and you can post it up, and people we have a very, very gullible society, and that to me is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And even our president is using AI a lot for different images of himself that the White House is then pushing forward on their social media. So I mean, it's really happening all over the place. And when you look at Generation Z, this is some more of the statistics that in Generation Z, students 44% believe that they're going to need more training because AI is beginning to take over in schools.
Yep.
It's beginning to take over in the workplace. Some AI is replacing workers.
Yeah. And I can see it makes sense. I get it.
And for a company, you could pay, let's say, $100,000 for an AI platform that you can use over and over and over again as a worker, rather than 5 different people at, say, $60,000 a year. And that $100,000 might just be one shot. So, I mean, it makes sense fiscally, but it's not helping the job market much.
True. But I think that's where their desire for training is really fantastic to see, because when you learn how to kind of control that, or like how to navigate that, it's going to help you out in the job market, because you'll be needed for that training of the AI. But at the same time, it allows you, hopefully if you get the right people in there, allows them to help steer away from like, okay, here's a potential negative, how can we work that out so that we still get the positive benefit out of it, but we're not entering into territory that we don't want to necessarily get involved in. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So
I mean,
smart.
The Matrix can happen. I mean, I know that's conspiratorial.
I mean, but we're getting closer, and I don't like it.
We're getting closer. I mean, I wish I could download something in my brain.
Yeah, I'd be down for
like
Kung
Tai
Fu.
Chi or
Yeah,
Kung
I'm down
Fu.
with that.
That'd be pretty sweet.
But the whole like living in a like incubator kind of thing, and then waking up to like a post-apocalyptic world, I'm good off that.
Not my jam.
Yeah,
but in schools, they're using it more and more often. They're teaching and training kids how to use AI. Nearly half, 47% of students say that they avoid using AI for school.
Good.
But that means that the other 53% do not avoid it. And we're going to see with our generation guys, the Generation Z guys in a moment, that many of their friends, I think they said 75%.
Like 60 to 70
something like that, of their friends use it for homework.
Yep.
And when they use it for homework, they're not learning what they're supposed to be learning.
And that's the other side that I'm wary of.
Yeah.
Is there's the easy way, quote unquote, the expedited way is good. It helps us in our society. But if you don't know how to do stuff the hard way, when the easy way blows up, then what are you going to do? Like for us, we had an internet outage for like maybe a couple hours, and we were fine. I mean, we just played in the house, but like if your kids are so dependent on that streaming service for their entertainment or for education in some cases, and you have no backup when that internet service goes down, now what? So
No, it's true. I think it's interesting all the stats of these students using AI for what they're doing, and they come to the test and then they struggle.
Right.
That's my
So they
concern.
don't know the process.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
got the answer.
And as teachers, you have to stay up with AI to be able to pick out what is AI and what is not AI. And there are several different programs. Turnitin is one of them. It helps the professor see and know what is and is not generated by AI. But because AI consistently gets more and more intuitive and smarter and better,
Which is cool.
yeah,
But...
yeah. I mean, because right now you could take a paper you wrote or several papers you wrote, put it into an AI generative, and it will generate out a paper on the topic that you wanted in the voice of you.
Right.
Because they see how you write, they understand how you're writing, and bang, they'll put it like that. So, I mean, there are implications for it, because we want to give space to our Generation Z guys who are bringing our ruckus. We're not going to take too long on this. But AI, the question is it a good thing or a bad thing? You can answer that question. That's the question that we're wrestling with. I mean, like with me, like I said, for the sermon clips and stuff, it's super helpful. But I can see how it can be overutilized to the detriment of the person learning what they're supposed to learn. There are certain things like you take your information on a paper and you need to make a PowerPoint presentation for class. You've already done the work, right? So you just put it into the generator and you say, make a PowerPoint out of this paper. And it will do it. I've seen it done really well. And it takes your words and puts it into slides. It breaks it up in that way. But if you were to take someone else's work and say, make a PowerPoint out of this, that's where it gets a little bit iffy for me. Because, well, not iffy, it's kind of illegal.
Just slightly.
but students are going to learn how to use it. And they're going to learn how to abuse it. My fear is Generation Alpha is going to rely too much on it.
So I had the same fear. There's an article that you had sent that I found really encouraging. And it talks about how Gen Alpha had this balance. And I attribute this to parenting. So good job, millennials, who are staying on top of this. That there's this balance of like, yes, technology is good, it's beneficial, but it's for me to use. It is for me to control. It is not something that controls me. It's not something I should be dependent on. And there's this intentional balance between like, yes, using technology for entertainment or whatever the case is, for help with homework, but also putting it down, going outside, engaging with the real world. And it's a real positive trend that's been seen. I have to find the article for this specific statistic, but when I read that, I was like, okay, at least there is that balance. Because, like you said, being wary of becoming dependent on the technology, that's where I'm like, that's how, besides all the conspiracy theory stuff, this is a practical danger that I was worried about, and that I'm going to try to be intentional with my kids about like, hey, yes, technology is good, but we got to learn to do stuff the hard way. We got to learn how to live without this technology, so that if it were to fail, we're not completely, helpless. I guess is a better way of saying it.
I mean, and excuse me, that could be what happens with AI, where we become so dependent. It's funny because we were talking to the boys. And when we were recording, we were talking about the questions they ask AI. And it made me laugh because those are questions I was asking Google. Right? I mean, so Google's a search engine.
Redundant,
right? So there is some redundancy into it. But AI searches all search engines. So, I mean, I guess it does make sense that you're going to get a more rounded view. And Google does put forward things that pay for them to be put forward. So, I mean, it makes it a little bit more even playing field in some senses. But I just thought it was funny that, we grew up using Google. They're using AI for the same thing. So, Well, we didn't want to belabor that point because we really want to get to these guys. We want you to see their ruckus and their intellectual discussion on AI. I was quite surprised that all the craziness that they brought some laser focus for a couple of minutes at least to the issue of artificial intelligence. So we're going to move over to them, but let me just state real quick, we had a little bit of sound issue with them. That's just how it goes sometimes. So it doesn't sound as beautiful and as sonorous as me and Drew, but we just want to just invite you to continue on and watch them. And after that, we have an interview with a friend of mine, Mark Ostreicher, who has worked with youth for 42 years. So you don't want to miss that. He's written all kinds of different books on it, and it'll help you see the generational overview of what they need from the church. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to this segment of the Cultivating Candor podcast. Here with Drew and this Kunkler crew. If you guys would introduce yourselves really quickly, what is Kunkler Food Reviews?
I guess I have the floor now, so I will introduce myself. My name is Adam Kunkler, the official star of my food reviews that I started doing back in November.
October.
Wait, yes,
Yeah,
yes, October, because it was during marching band season.
Yeah.
This all started because there was this whole drama going around about Feastables, and I wanted to try the Feastables bar so bad. So then I asked my friend Marvin here to record it for me, and then
it was right outside Sheets.
it was right outside of my local Sheets,
Nice.
and
we were just why not?
And then it turned into this whole thing where
We showed Chris and my cousin Evan, who's not here right now, but he wanted to get it started up, and so in October then we did our first video in here. We did it with an apple cider thing, but that video got taken down actually because Adam said beers, so I guess since it had alcohol reference in it, we got it taken down, but. We started doing them, and then we just did one every week, and we've been posting them. Chris edits them, so
Yeah.
oh yeah.
So I'm the editor. He edits every now and then. But this past video I edited, and I do in CapCut. So yeah.
I have to say, my favorite edit that you do is the laser eyes. It's a constant edit that you use for that. So, who are you, Brandon?
I'm Brandon, as he said. I'm just here for morale, I guess. I don't really edit.
Brandon's here for a
really
good
do
time.
anything. Yeah, I am.
He pushes them along, right?
yeah.
I'm like all their friends.
Moral support.
Yeah.
Moral support.
I'm like.
All right, so we got some questions for you.
All right.
We want to just bring you on to ask you some questions to get the Gen Z perspective. Drew and I have been talking about Generation Z and Gen Alpha a lot lately, but it's unfair for us to just talk about them without having them here with us.
Right,
so each of these young men are young Gen Zers. They're not part of the older Gen Z. They're close to the Gen Alpha by about 3 years. They're separated, so they're in this really interesting space, and I want to ask you all, you gentlemen here, with all your wisdom and all of your experience, why is Generation Z better than Generation Alpha?
Well, I'll gladly answer that first question.
No hesitation.
Because, I'm the different here as I was born in 2006. I'm currently 19 years old. I know, I'm an unk. Anyways,
Can you explain what "unk" means for our audience?
I'm an old person.
Okay.
So when I grew up, I grew up with playing Minecraft on my grandmother's Xbox 360 at her house.
Xbox 360.
That's a
Bro,
sentence in
Xbox
itself.
360 was so fun.
I was 360.
As well as also
Grandma was a gamer.
as well as also I played not the new ones because those suck, but the old Call of Duty Modern Warfares.
Yes, those were so
Black
Valid
Ops
opinion.
1,
Valid
Black Ops 2. Oh my goodness, those were the days.
So because of your video games, you're telling me that you're better than...
Yes, because we had better video games. Black Ops 2 is better than Modern Warfare or whatever they play now. I don't even know what the Call of Duty is.
So your generation's superiority is based off of video
Oh
games.
no, that's only one of the parts.
Oh, okay.
The new Black Ops just came out.
That
That's
they
the newest
announced.
one.
Black Ops 6?
All right, so
Oh, yeah.
so who else?
Okay, wait, I'm still not done yet.
Oh, the
yet.
Kunkler's not done. Hold on.
My bad.
So, and plus also I grew up watching really just stupid stuff on YouTube. Old YouTube was fantastic.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I remember watching
Blippi.
the before
No,
before
let's what are you talking about, bro?
before it got ruined by freaking brain rot. The most memorable thing I ever watched, because I used to be really into Minecraft when I was little. I remember watching like Minecraft animations, like Monster
Yes.
School.
Yes,
those were
those are
so
so
fire. Oh my
Those are
goodness!
fire.
As well as like
Fire's a
as
good
well,
thing.
as well as also watching like a bunch of Minecraft YouTubers, like
Yes.
a lot. As well as also, I also really
The
like.
Hunger Games videos.
I
those
really
ones.
like. Oh yes!
Minecraft Hunger Games.
Oh my goodness! And
That's
now
crazy.
nowadays,
They don't understand that.
Yeah,
No,
yes
they-
we do.
Oh, they
They
do.
did run for that one. Give them
I
a
know,
little
I
credit.
nowadays, nobody like cares about like old Minecraft stuff anymore. They just don't care. It's like, oh, what people nowadays there's like, oh, what is that? And then they're like, oh my goodness, skimmity toilet. Oh my goodness, tum 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 tum.
Why? All right, pass it to someone else. Why is your generation superior?
So I think that honestly, we just grew up in a better culture. We did not have like everything around us. Like iPads were barely a thing, so we weren't like iPad kids as they call them, and like on our iPads all day. We were
Poor
like
kids.
outside having fun a lot, and we watched like YouTube on TV like for like 30 minutes a day, like one video a day. We watched like our favorite YouTuber or whatever like that, and yeah, we're like more outside. We're more everywhere around the community and stuff. Like we just went everywhere. So I just think that it's just because how we've been like in our world more.
So less screens.
Yeah,
you
less
think?
virtuality.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. You know, there is a movement on Reddit. You can pass it to Christian. There is a movement on Reddit where there is a screen addiction discussion group for Gen Z, where they're going on there and they're trying to figure out how can I.
It's known as a subreddit for those of you.
See, I don't know. See, I don't even know Reddit. I just read about Reddit. I don't Reddit. You know what I'm saying? Okay, lame. Right. All right. So, Christian, why is your generation superior?
Alright, so probably more on like the digital stuff. So I guess we're kind of like the second generation to like grow up with like
Digital generation.
with like the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like millennials were kind of like the first, and you guys know how that.
Yeah, MySpace.
So
Whatever that
yeah.
is.
No,
Yeah.
We're all a bunch of unks and old heads. Is
So
that what you mean?
so we're just
So
kind
now
of
I'm
more
big bro. I'm good.
yeah. So I guess we're more
Arguments.
savvy with that sort of thing.
You're more savvy than Gen Alpha.
Oh, for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
we've
okay.
just been around it
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, we're more adapted to the environment.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now here's the other question. Drew, you had a question.
Yeah, so mine was more pertaining to, because we were talking about Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and AI than the rest of our podcast. So mine kind of had to do with that. I know how I feel about this topic, but I wanted to ask you guys, do you care to know if the content that you're watching or listening or reading, if it was generated by AI, why or why not?
Well, me personally, I sort of care and sort of don't. It's in a mix between the two. Whereas on one hand, AI videos and stuff, those are like lazily generated. You just type in a prompt and it does it for you.
Right.
Whereas you need actual effort to like make a video like worth watching.
Mhm.
But
Like
also,
Kunkler food reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
You can't
hard
replicate
editing,
real
yeah.
you can't replicate
The
Kunkler
first-
food.
Yeah,
At least-
I'm not like my op, Paul Ewan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, bro.
Calling him out.
All right,
Calling
stay
him
on
out,
task.
yes.
Let's stay on task.
Well,
Stay on task.
Yeah.
Stay on
So
track.
Brandon was giving us some good words here. Yeah.
And also, I'm also kind of torn in AI because AI can be helpful
Oh, yeah.
in some cases. Like if you're trying to like do your homework and you're like stuck on that really one hard question. And of course, AI has greatly improved over the years.
0.5 GPA right here.
Bro,
Don't call people's GPA out. They know what's
I know what you did. I know that you stuck a lead pencil into a Chromebook.
I did not do that.
you an F student?
I'm back. A paper.
F students.
I'm back.
All right.
I'm
So,
back.
so,
Alright, come back.
so Adam, what's your thoughts on AI? Do you care if it's AI made or?
Okay, here's the thing. AI content. I'm like basically on Brandon's level. AI content is fine. Some of it's okay, but then it gets to a certain level where it's so bad I can't even watch it. Like, holy crap!
That's fair.
It's so cringe.
That's
It's so bad, and I'm just my eyes are bleeding, and I have cancer.
Yeah, there's been like these
He
like
goes to extremes. Just so you guys know.
there's been like these AI generated. There's been these like vlogs, like so basically it's like Bigfoot and Yeti and like this capybara vlogging, but it's like AI, so they're like up in the mountains and just like talking, and like they like have generated voices, which is like it's weird to see that because like I mean I know it's AI generated, but it kind of looks like super real for some reason, but like I don't know, but like that's like the only really AI like video content I've been seeing. I really think that like. You can tell if it's human-made or AI-made because human-made has a lot more personality to like the editing style, what is going on in the video, and like even how it looks.
Yeah, so. That's go Brandon or who
Christian.
Christian.
No, what were you gonna say? Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
So all I was gonna say was I think I agree with you that like some of those ones like with the animals who are hiking or something, and they've done some with like Bible stories. But there is an element of realness to it where it's like, whoa, this is a little too real, and you can tell there's a distinction between like a real video and an AI video. There's like the smoothness to the animation and stuff. You can see that now, but like what trips me up is like we see this stuff and it's getting realer and realer and realer. And it's gonna come a day where it's like, okay, if there's not some kind of sanction or some kind of thing put out there was like, okay, we need to make sure we can distinguish between these two. It can get real dangerous real fast. That's
definitely.
Yeah, deep fakes are there, and there's all kinds of AI stuff that's bananas out there right now.
Right, so Christian, you're gonna say something.
Yeah, no. The other day I was scrolling on TikTok and I saw this one video. It was made by AI, and like it's getting crazy good. Like I couldn't tell at first glance, and I think that is very bad.
Right,
it's like you said, it could be very dangerous. Like this might be a reach, but like in the future, like people could like possibly frame people.
Oh, 100%.
That is not a reach
at all.
That has happened.
And like if I wanted to,
like generated.
There's an AI filter right now that if I took a picture of you and I put the filter on, I could take your shirt off.
Gooner mentality.
Gooner mentality.
So I mean, or if I took a video of you like just walking down the street with one of these guys, like take your shirts off.
You can take all of our clothes off.
Yeah. Okay. I was just gonna stay in shirt.
It's
Clearly
the danger.
How do you do that so I can stay away from you?
Well, if you want to stay away from it, hold on. Let's bring it back. Boys. What? To stay away from it, you just have to wear green all day, so no one can do that to you. Because that's what you were asking, right? Yeah. How do you not have that happen to you, right? That's what you were. That's what you were.
Yeah.
That's what you were asking, right?
Yeah. Well, like I feel like in the future, like it should be like a law to like like you should legally have to like mention if something's made by AI or not.
Sorry about that. My computer keeps being.
Or like AI generators should all come with like watermarks of some sort.
Yes,
like
some
big
watermark that would distinguish.
Yeah.
Like just like those Getty images, like
Getty images.
Right.
Yeah.
Getty images.
Well, you know why Getty images that watermarks it though.
No.
So you can't steal it.
You can't download it.
See, that's another thing about AI though. Like if either of you were any of you are gonna plan to be videographers or artists in any way, all of your work could just be AI generated.
Yep.
And you would lose all your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, can I say something?
Yeah. Give him the mic.
Another thing that I'm really, what I don't like about AI is I am seeing on like YouTube a lot, and it's really like makes me really freaking angry, and also it makes me like really ticked off. I am seeing like a bunch of YouTubers don't even like. What I'm trying to say is like don't even like take their job as like a YouTuber to like a fun extent. They're only doing it for money.
Yeah.
And basically now that AI is here, they're literally like people are literally like it goes to a bunch of people. Bunch of YouTube channels are like literally having AI make videos, and then all that they have to do is just sit back and freaking earn freaking cash.
Yeah, we just do our stuff for fun.
Like there's no expression behind it. There's no meaning.
Right.
It's just like an empty void of just nothingness. And
Yeah.
here's the thing:
There's no.
I didn't grow up with that, and I'm actually quite thankful I didn't grow up
Yeah,
with
because
that.
like, we can just have like people weren't even doing it for the money. They were just doing it to
Fun.
like fun and show off their stuff. Like,
Right.
like what Minecraft worlds I made and stuff.
Yeah.
Those were like super fun.
Yeah.
Now, here's my other question for you guys on when it comes to AI. All right, what's the percentage of your classmates who are cheating, doing all their homework, doing all their papers, all their Google presentations by using AI? Would you say it's a high percentage?
Like 2/3.
Yeah.
Probably.
2/3.
Probably.
Yeah.
Wow, so 66%.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I do admit, sometimes I use AI, but what I do is I like to use AI because it helps me to find things. So then I can, because I wrote a poem by myself, and I used AI to look up synonyms, but I didn't make AI write the poem for me. I made it all
that's fair.
myself.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what I use Google for.
Yeah.
It's more AI assisted.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like an AI like to assist your writing.
Oh, yeah.
Like help like refine your stuff. Like
Grammarly.
yeah, like
Yeah,
Grammarly.
Grammarly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Grammarly
something
is
is
stuff,
AI
yeah.
is okay. Plus, also, I also like to use AI because sometimes when I'm like making something, I'll be like, "Hey, do you have any good ideas for me that I can do for
Yeah.
this?" And they'll give me ideas, and I'm like, "Oh, that's great,
Mhm.
thank you."
It's a supplement. It's not something to depend on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am seeing a lot of people in
Depend on it.
my school depend on it, and it
Yeah.
makes me kind of like be concerned because the thing about AI is not all of it is accurate,
Right.
and
Right.
and one time I was sitting in a study hall and I saw someone doing like history homework, and also I like history, by the way, so I
Yep.
started cringing when
Yep.
they started looking up answers, and I'm like, goodness, history is so easy. All you have to do is pay attention. You're probably sleeping in class. Maybe that's why you're having to
Yeah.
use AI.
Yeah.
Freaking dimwit. Anyways,
All
See,
right,
now
all
you
right.
guys can see
We're
why Adam is the star of Kunkler
Yeah.
food reviews.
He's like a
You know,
crazy.
So even Adam, as you're talking about that, I know a history teacher. Well, they were student teaching, and the AI happened as well, where they were trying to write a journal about a specific war, and they wrote it about the wrong war because they used AI.
let's know what's so funny. That reminds me of my story is so basically this person was doing like an assignment on like the American Revolution or something, and then they type in something, and the AI says something about the American Civil War, and they put it in and submit it, and I'm like, and my honest reaction is this.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on AI? Any other thoughts?
Anybody
No.
wants the
I
floor?
think Brandon wants to say
I
something.
will.
Moving away from it. What do you say, Brandon?
I mean, personally, I think, of course, AI is sometimes, of course, good and bad. But I'm curious on how did it start, really?
I mean, AI's been around for
A long time.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing that like makes me
It has,
Kinda-
now that I think about it.
that trips me up a little bit. Is like some of the stuff that AI does is like we've had this for a really long time.
Yeah,
I don't understand why it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
Like it's great, like the generative stuff that it can do, like video generation.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
new. That's pretty innovative. Okay, that's cool. But like some of
Yeah.
the stuff, like like when you're looking up synonyms and stuff like that, then that's fine to do. But it's like but we have Google for that. So it's like okay, what areas are redundant? What areas are not?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like you said, there's pluses and minuses to it.
Well, I know AI has been a thing for like I think it's just like kind of existed under our noses, so
Oh,
to
yeah.
speak.
See
Like
that.
like for instance, like this was around like my dad used this a lot in like the early 2010s. Late 2000s. He uses like text to speech a lot.
Yeah.
And text to speech is
Technically,
AI
yeah.
generated.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't classified as AI.
Yeah,
Like it was
not the
still
same
there.
concept,
Plus,
yeah.
also, even early as like 2014, there was websites where like you could like you could like make like really wacky AI generated stories and
Okay.
stuff, and they'll like fill in the text for you. You just type
Yeah,
in
gotcha,
one
gotcha,
word,
gotcha.
and then the AI will fill in the rest. Yeah, it's pretty
Mad
janky,
libs.
but like,
Yeah, I see that.
but like now, right now, it's just like
Keeps getting
it just like
Yeah.
keeps
Yeah.
improving.
Yeah.
Well, I have one final question because we're coming out on time here. We'll probably have you guys back on
Oh yeah.
another time to ask more generation specific questions. But my final question is, what does Gen Alpha do better than you,
Nothing.
Gen Z? Nothing.
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 You don't think that they can do AI better than you? I think they might be. able
Nah,
to.
we're
Give it
better.
time. Give it time.
Well,
More
Yeah.
experience.
They're better at cheating.
Good one,
So,
Kunkler.
I mean, for that AI, like with them using it, I think that like in the future we might have surgeons asking ChatGPT where to like. That's what I'm worried about.
I
That's
see that.
like
Yeah.
like
Yo,
you're
where
going to
does
like
this go?
doctorate school and,
like-
and
it's like-
asking. Yeah.
It's like you don't need to go to college anymore.
Yeah, you just need to ask AI.
Yeah.
and the
It's
answer
like
back.
how do I assist a patient in delivering a baby?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
like
That's a valid fear.
yeah. I'm actually like kind of worried about that, which is
33% of Generation Z are anxious
Mhm.
about AI.
I wish you were higher.
33%.
Yeah.
Also a bit of a conspiracy.
That's
theorist.
a
We're not
that's a
gonna
pretty.
get into
I mean, well,
that.
you and I grew up watching Terminator.
Right.
I mean, talk about the fear in the
Right.
Matrix.
Right.
Now we're like, hey, everybody, let's develop a Terminator. And
There have been
AI
conversations about like putting
solid
like robotic
skeletal-
assistants within the
I
home,
don't
and I'm
know.
like, no,
No,
I've seen that
we've
robot.
seen
You're not
how
gonna
that
get me.
happens.
Not gonna get
Yeah.
me. No sir.
Yeah.
Plus, also, it might imagine if like all these AI companies start making robots, and then they try to take over the world. Then it would be
Yeah.
Star Wars: The
Yeah.
Clone Wars. All those.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
oh yeah.
We've seen this story
Those
play out
stupid
before.
clankas.
Now here's the thing. We're like I said, we're running out of time. What's one final word you'd like to tell our audience? Now our audience is made up largely of Christian parents, Christian leaders, Christian youth leaders. What's one thing you'd like to tell them? Very shortly.
Very short. And center.
This guy. Short.
Please go to TikTok and support Mr. Kunkler Food Reviews. Please. It's not like it would just make me really happy.
Yeah.
Understood.
And we also like we love all the youth parent support. Our youth leader Brett has helped us with these.
Brett.
Oh yeah, Brett.
Helping them, so he's been like really awesome through this and helping us out with that. And thank you to my dad for letting us film in this room. And Drew for letting us film in this room. Yeah, this is our
I'm just
main.
here.
This is our main recording room. So this is where we do some of the reviews for our food, and then sometimes we go out in public. So thank you to all those people.
Mhm.
You guys have anything else?
I do. Oh, Chris, do you want to go first?
Thank
Alright. I'm just thankful that you guys decided to have me here.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah.
This is a blast. I want to do this more often.
You guys will
Yeah.
definitely be back. Definitely. will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like the AI, like Terminator, like I'll be back.
Yeah.
Hasta la vista.
And most thankful to God, of course.
Yes,
That's
thank
all I
you.
have.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
God.
We wouldn't have this like possibility if like we didn't have him and all this.
Mhm.
He like we wouldn't be able to film in the church. Like he set out everything that we need to do. So yeah.
Thank you to our producing crew here.
Yes, thank you.
Let's
Thank
give it
you.
up for them, guys. So, hey, thank you for joining Cultivating Candor, gentlemen. It is a pleasure to have you. We will
Sir.
see you again sometime, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Say bye.
Farewell.
Bye.
Farewell.
Bye.
Godspeed.
Bye.
Thanks. Welcome back to Cultivating Candor, a community for honest Christian discussion, content, and commentary. Today, I have with me a hero in youth ministry of mine, a friend and a huge influence on me in youth ministry and ministry with young adults, in ministry in general. Marko has been in youth ministry for 42 years, and he has written several books on many different topics as it comes to youth ministry and working with young adults. He is an author, an entrepreneur. He's a mentor who works with other youth workers from across the globe, and he's an all-around good guy. So, Marko, we thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure to be able to interview you and ask you some of these questions and pick your brain on questions I've probably been thinking about asking you for a really long time.
Awesome, Marv. I'm glad to be here.
So let me bring you back in a time capsule really quickly. 2008. It's a really long time ago.
A long time ago.
It's a long time ago. You didn't have white hair. I don't even think you had the beard so long then.
No.
But you wrote a profound book that I believe is still prophetic today for youth ministry. It was titled Youth Ministry 3.0. And it was all about looking at where we were in youth ministry, where we are in youth ministry, and where we should be in youth ministry. And I call it prophetic, Marko, because a lot of what you talked about ended up being true, and I think still rings true today with the heartbeat of belonging and identity and the desire for being known that these generations have had all throughout the last 20 years. So my question for you is, if you were to sit down and write Youth Ministry 4.0, what would need to be included and why? I don't even know if you've ever thought about this, but I don't know. Maybe.
I totally have thought about it. Yeah. I mean, I've thought about it for years in one way or another. For a long time, I think my answer just would have been, I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I think even early in the pandemic, I felt like we were experiencing maybe a supercharged hyper version of 3.0. And for those who, most of your listeners would not be familiar with the premise of that book, but my suggestion is that the three primary developmental tasks of adolescence, which is identity, trying to figure out my identity, who am I, agency, I use a different word in the book, but these days I use the word agency, which is how do my choices matter, and can I actually make decisions that would influence the direction of my own life or maybe influence others. And then belonging, that those three tasks, which are God-given, they're good and beautiful, those have reshuffled in their priority over at that point, this 50 to 75 years of modern youth culture. And that what was really needed at the time that I wrote that book was a focus on prioritizing belonging, because for teenagers and young people, let's say in the 90s and the well, really it's starting in the early 2000s, the belonging, finding a place of belonging was their lens through which they figured out the other tasks, right? So, but now, as of about a year ago, I did some work on understanding the shifts that are taking place with Gen Alpha, and I've reshuffled it. So I do have a 4.0 idea now. I don't know that it's ever going to become a book. What I've seen is that the relationship of those three tasks has shifted because of the fact that kids today are digital natives. That's the primary descriptor or uniqueness of kids who are teenagers today, but particularly younger teens and children, grew up always having the internet, always having access to everything. And so they're digital natives. And that means a few things. That agency task, it's presumed. They assume that they have agency. Of course, they still need to work it out, but that's already assumed. I can figure things out. I can make things happen. And it's a little easier today, just a little bit at least, to find places of belonging because so many of those are found online. And so what we see so often is that young people are encouraged to be their unique selves, right? To find their own niche, but then they're able to find other people who are into that in a way that wasn't true before we had people who were digitally native. And so then that leaves this question of identity. And at least my working proposition is that the identity question has changed. It's no longer who am I, as in identity as a fixed destination that I'm moving toward, but it's who do I choose to be? And that is reshuffling everything. So I'm picturing it these days like as the model that is working for me, at least, is a rocking chair. The seat is a place of practice. Well, let's return to that later in the conversation. It's where we work stuff out. The back of the chair is agency. I apply agency it's totally my own choice, whether I move fast or slow, whether I apply a lot of agency or a little bit of agency. The legs of the chair are multiple places of belonging because all of this stuff is worked out in multiple places of belonging. The more social options a kid has, the more places of belonging they're probably going to have. And then the runners of the rocking chair, those become identities. And I don't mean like in a disorder sense, multiple personality disorder or something like that. The language I've been using is that in multiple places of belonging, exercising agency in places of practice, young people are developing a wardrobe of identities. And I think that what we're seeing with young people will eventually be all of us. I'm not been a huge fan of generational studies historically. I feel like it's often comes off like an old guy saying, "Get off my lawn," and just describing what they don't like about younger generations. And it feels kind of unfair to say everybody born in these 15 years has these exact same characteristics. But there is definitely a shift taking place. And I would say young people are indigenous to the current culture that we're living in. Marv, you and I live in the same culture too, but we're not indigenous to it. We're immigrants to it. So we still are living in this same space, but it affects us differently since we're not indigenous to it.
I really like that image of a rocking chair and the agency that you talk about. That definitely is something that's there that hadn't been there before. This feeling of choice that they have more than they had in previous generations. I don't know if you've read any of the Springtide research that's been done on Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And
Some of it, yeah.
I mean, to me, it was significant for the dissertation I was writing on empowering the next generation of leaders, and just seeing the effects of mental health alone, and how places of belonging, being known, having that identity actually strengthens their ability to push back against poor mental health. So that's I appreciate your insight on that, and I would totally read that book. I just want to because it was a profound thing for me, 3.0, and how I approached youth ministry and worked with teens. And so, I mean, that to me was a personal question that I'm glad our podcast listeners got to listen in on. As you know, we've been talking with a couple of people who have been deconstructing their faith. One was a younger 20-something TikTok star. The other was a 40-year-old guy who's been wrestling with this for a long time and wrote a couple of books on it. But as we've talked about this issue, I've gotten some pushback from people saying that why are you letting them say all these things and justifying other people's feelings, and I'm like, well, you're able to now see a window that you weren't able to see before into what's going on. But the question I have for you is why can deconstruction be a good thing for today's youth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in many ways, it's just new language for something that has been taking place forever, right? That people grow up in a context, usually a family, but some kind of a context where they're enculturated into a faith. I'm not saying that it's not real for them, but it's an inherited faith, right? And then at some point, they have to shift to a place, and this usually takes place during the teenage years and the young adult years, have to move to a place where they own it as their own. And of course, long before we started using the word deconstruction, many of those people, rightly so, examined and weren't able to hold on to what they were told was the correct expression or set of beliefs, right? So I just think we have some new language for it now. And certainly the language has popularized this. I don't see deconstruction as a negative thing at all. The problem is when people are left to deconstruct on their own, then it can often end up in a place where a not good enough faith doesn't get replaced with a better faith, or a not good enough set of beliefs doesn't get replaced with a better set of beliefs. Really? So for parents and church leaders, youth workers, young adult workers, this is a repositioning of our role, right? We're coming alongside them, not in a shaming way, but as helpers to ask questions, as dialogue partners, as people who would propose new ideas to be considered. My definition of great youth ministry is walking alongside young people on their own journeys toward Christ likeness, right? And so that's our posture now, is to come alongside.
Yeah, I think that is so good, Marko. I think the problem is people are afraid of kids asking those questions. And, part of it, as I've experienced with some adults, they just don't know how to answer them. And so they give trite responses like, oh, just have faith, or how could you be asking that question? It's clear here, here, and here, but there's no real dialogue. It's all battling this whole idea. And I think if we were to take a posture of walking alongside and truly listening, then it would really help us and help the relationship we have with these young adults, for them not to just throw us out and say, well, they have nothing to offer me. They're not walking alongside me. They're
right.
It would give us that opportunity to share. So I appreciate that. Like I said, I always appreciate your wisdom, and you could say things that in ways that I would never have thought of said. So I appreciate that. When you look at Generation Z and Gen Alpha, I know, the idea of the old man get off my lawn and generational studies, like you said. But you, as someone who's in their 60s now, you're still working with teens. And so you've seen generational shifts. I mean, from boomers, Xers, millennials, Z, now Alpha. You've been able to not just study it and look at the statistics, but you've been with them. So you've spent time listening to them. I remember a couple of years ago, you were still leading a 6th grade Bible study. I don't know if you're still doing that, but that was holy cow.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
I'm
a small group leader at my church in the middle school ministry. Yeah. I just finished the 8th grade guys. So in the fall, I'll circle back around and take a new 6th grade group.
I love that. So you have the answer to this question more than many others I could ask it to. When you look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha, what is the most hopeful piece that you sense in their lives, and why? When you look at them and you have this hopefulness, I mean, you even wrote a book on hope. What do you see as hopeful in these generations?
Yeah, let me answer it first more broadly, because I don't think that my primary answer is not a generational thing. It is more of a life stage thing. I just find that the teenage years particularly, and it could spill into the young adult years, they're just have hope built into them. It's like the hopiest part of life because embedded in a good biblical understanding of what hope really is, and how it's not the same thing as optimism, by the way, there's a sense of natural dissatisfaction and a belief that a preferred future is possible. We'll put that in Christian language and say, I think the definition I used in the book is that belief that God continues to author a story, right? So there's this, and that's built into the teenage years. They're wrestling with things. They're deconstructing not only their Christian belief, they're deconstructing all of their assumptions about who they are and how the world works. And that is a natural hotspot of hope. So I just find working with teenagers encourages me to be a hopeful person because they so naturally believe the current reality is not the permanent reality. There is the possibility. Now, a generational shift, we might point out, is that with that increased sense or a natural belief in agency that younger people are having these days, that adds to the hopefulness of this generation, that they really do believe we can make a difference. I can make a difference. And if they're a Jesus follower also, hopefully that is infused with I get to play a role partnering with my creator in bringing God's dreams to the world. And I just think the average 17-year-old believes that in a way that the average 62-year-old, my age, does not, right? Most people my age, a lot of people my age have kind of given up on a belief that they have agency to influence the world in a positive direction.
And you think that's why they just stop trying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's developed. I think so many older people, and I'm including myself in that category, develop a deep sense of cynicism about any real change happening, and I consider cynicism to be the polar opposite of hope. They can't coexist, right? Because cynicism basically says, no, a preferred future isn't possible. Right. And that's a complete lack of or absence of hope. Even if one is at a place of dissatisfaction, still holding on to this belief that something better is coming. And maybe I get to be part of it.
Oh, no, sorry about that. Do you think that that's the reason why activism and the push for justice for this generation has been so strong compared to others? I mean, obviously, you look back and you see the justice movement for the African American freedom and freedoms, and now we're seeing a shift of passionate young people coming out for the issue of justice and activism. Do you think it's that hope that drives them to that?
Yeah, I do. That's the short answer. Yeah, I mean, we could unpack it more, but yes, I do think that's why we're seeing so much of that. Combined with the fact that as digital natives, they have access to all of this information that fuels them or discomforts them or makes them, draws them into being part of these issues. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. When you look at this generation, is there any hopelessness that you see? Or I know that's kind of a negative thing, but maybe switching it from hopeless to just saying, oh man, that if that doesn't change, the trajectory could be really bad.
Yeah. I do. My blink response to that is I don't think we'll ever see a generation of young people that I would find completely as hopeless because of those developmental things that we talked about earlier. I think there's always going to be a sense of hope amongst young people. I mean, I do think that, as you've talked about on previous episodes, I do think that a lot of the crisis of stress and anxiety and the way it's playing out in the lives of young people is deeply problematic, and we're not seeing dramatic improvement on that. I mean, we're talking about it more. It's not weird to talk about now in a way that it would have been weird to talk about 30 years ago. So that's good progress. But we're just seeing this exponential increase of teenagers dealing with anxiety and stress. And so I don't know if I would say I feel hopeless about that, but I would say I feel discouraged about that.
Yeah. Now we've unpacked a couple of ideas and even research that has shown some of the reasons for this anxiety and this new mental health crisis in some ways for this generation. But as you work closely with them, what is something that you've experienced kind of triggers it for the kids that you work with?
Yeah. I think on one sense, it is massive quantity of expectations being put on young people. And I'm not trying to throw any parent under the bus on this, but a lot of this pressure comes from parents. And again, the reason I'm not throwing the parents under the bus is that parents are told that's good parenting. That's what you're supposed to do, right? So it's parents and the schools and coaches and even youth pastors and everything else, right? It's putting a lot of expectation and pressure on kids. At the same time, here's where the rub I think really comes from, is we're in a period of history where we're treating, at least in the United States, we're treating young people as if they were children. So we've removed responsibility and consequences and things like that teenagers need in order to learn, right? Because of their significantly underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, right? Their frontal lobes, we all know they're not great at like risk evaluation, amongst other things. But God made them that way. They're supposed to be bad at risk evaluation, so they will take risks in order to figure out who they are and where they fit in the world, right? Of course, those risks can take them to some bad places sometimes, but when we remove the opportunity, let's say, to take risks or to have meaningful responsibility or anything like that, then we're putting them in this weird spot where there's all this pressure on them, but not actually an opportunity other than just simple performance to actually exercise the things that they need to do in order to figure out who they are. And I think that's kind of at the core. That's the seed at the middle, the kernel of truth at the middle of why kids are experiencing so much anxiety these days. And even those who aren't experiencing clinical anxiety, they're still under lots of stress.
Yeah. Wow, that's really good. Removing those consequences and not allowing that risk to happen. I think I've never actually thought about that in that way. And so I appreciate that insight for sure. I remember Len Kegler used to say they haven't had their cerebral upgrade yet. And that
That's
was
right.
always his term for that. And that was, for those of you who don't know, the youth ministry department head at Nyack College at the time. I was there for youth ministry. But wow, I mean, not being able to take those risks and not able to learn from them, that's pretty significant. And we stunt growth with not giving them space to lead is what, one of the things I think we just don't, and especially in the church, we don't allow them to lead or to take those risks in churches. And I think that's a sad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A thriving church today, I would suggest, and this comes out a lot in the new book by Kara Powell and Jake Mulder and Ray Chang called Future Focused Church. A church that's thriving these days doesn't just have a good youth ministry that sits off on the side somewhere and is, a holding tank for the future of the church. A church that's thriving integrates teenagers into every level, every aspect of the church. And that is not only a benefit for the teenagers themselves or the young people themselves, it's a benefit for the church and for the people who are older also.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And every level we can, we try to infuse that into what we're doing. We have teenagers who are helping out with our deaconesses. There's a couple of folks who are in high school girls that are like, we want to help out. And so I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Plan it. Let's put it together. We have we even have a kid who's in kindergarten who's one of our church ushers.
That's great.
It's the greatest thing. I always give him a fist pound whenever he walks by me because it's just so cool to see some of these kids just getting involved in leadership and other areas of the church. And we have one young man who we call a junior elder who sits on the elder board, doesn't have a vote, but he spends time there learning what it's all about. So that's a lot of fun. But you talk about building future leaders and you talk about the future of the church. What are you doing? I know it's a lot, so I'd love to hear what you're doing to develop the youth workers that are there, but also trying to help develop future youth workers And why is that important to the church? The work you do at Youth Cartel is significant. And from your perspective, why is it important for the future of the church to do all the things that you're doing?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. I think, so the main thing that I do these days is I run this year-long coaching program. It's really a leadership development program for youth workers. And there's 10 youth workers in a cohort, and we meet over the course of a year. And I see just incredible growth in them as individuals as well as in their ministries. We've had 800 people go through that program now.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm very involved. Like I would say at the moment, it's, I have 5 cohorts going around right now. So I'm very involved with 50 youth workers right now. And that, that we'll start new ones throughout the year. I lost track of the question. I told you what I'm doing, but there was more to the question.
Well, no, why is it important for the future of the church?
Yeah. So, I've been saying for a while that I think a healthy ministry lives or dies on whether or not the leader is healthy. I'd rather have a healthy, growing leader who has a warm heart for God and is not stuck in their beliefs than somebody with great skills. It's nice to have both, but it's really like I want a healthy, vibrant, flourishing person to be the leader for my kids, right? And so that's really what we're focusing on. We do talk about ministry skills and programs and things like that too. But at the heart of the training that I'm leading is we want you, youth worker, to be a healthy, vibrant person so you don't flame out or do damage or only last for 2 years or whatever, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of like soul care level stuff, like spiritual formation.
Yeah, it's probably more along the line of growing in self-awareness. So what am I actually good at? What are some areas of problem in my life that I need to address? What do I need to be honest about that working in a church, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Marv, it's often hard as a church employee, and especially a leader, to be really honest about your own life or any questions you have. So we create a space for that kind of honesty to take place, which then means that people start to address those issues.
That's good. Yeah. When there's secrets, they don't get addressed. You're not
right.
You're not being willing to open them up. That's so true.
I had a funny experience in the last couple of weeks. I just started in the last year having new cohorts take a little online kind of test. Let's say assessment is really what it would be. It's one from 10 by 10, which is an organization that I've been doing some partnering with. And it's assessment of a variety of factors that research tells us should be in place for a youth ministry to thrive, right? And then I had them take the same quiz or assessment again at the end of our year together. And I just had the first cohort that finished and took the test 2 times. Mm-hmm. And what surprised me was all of their scores on how well they're doing or their ministry is doing, all of their scores went down. I totally expected their scores to go up because I see so much growth in these people's lives. And I was just with them all at a final retreat, and I asked them, I was really surprised to see your scores go down. And they all said, well, you helped us to see the truth, and now we're being honest. We weren't even being honest with ourselves a year ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. A better assessment of what's actually, man, that's encouraging. It's working what you're doing.
Yeah. It is.
Oh man. Well, we're talking about these generational differences. We're talking about deconstruction and, when you have a moment, say you're having coffee with a parent and they ask you the question, what's one thing I need to know to help my teen in these tumultuous times? I'm sure you probably come up with 20 that are in your head right now. But if a parent were to ask you that question, what's the most important thing? What would your response be to that?
I guess I would start with understand that the experience of being a teenager in America today is not the same as it was 20 years ago. So, not the same as when you, parent, were a teenager. And of course, there are some things that are the same, but overall, we're living in a different world. We do not have one monolithic youth culture anymore. There are thousands of youth cultures, and teenagers are trying to figure all of this stuff out, and it's a really challenging space for them to be in. So the one thing that I think we should do is have compassion for teenagers, and not assume that we understand what their experience is.
Yeah. It can be hard as parents, as a parent of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it's like, I know what you're going through, but I mean, I have to stop and ask those questions. Like what really is going on?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's key. And I think it's too easy for us to make assumptions because, oh, well, I've lived there, I've been there,
right.
I've done that, have the t-shirt kind of attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's totally different. How about would your answer be the same for a church leader? So someone who's in my position, I'm a senior pastor, and I'm looking to help create a culture in the church that empowers young leaders to rise up, giving them
Yeah.
the opportunity to lead and fail. I mean, because failure is a part of learning, probably the better part of learning than success. A lead pastor is having coffee with you and he says, or she says, what's the most important thing for me to know about empowering this generation? What would your thought on that be?
Oh, I'm glad we got to this question because it actually loops back to what I said earlier when I talked about a place of practice. That's the seat of that rocking chair, if you remember. So my very technical definition of places of practice, I'm mocking myself here, is saying stuff and doing stuff.
Mm,
So it's critical to adolescent faith development and holding on to faith for young adults. It's critical that verbalization gets prioritized over us telling them things or giving correct answers. So that historic approach where ministry with young people is primarily about telling them what to believe, that whether that ever worked, it functionally doesn't work anymore. And we need to instead prioritize offering places of practice over giving the right answer, right? And those places of practice, again, verbalization of belief, which includes questions and doubts, as well as opportunities to do things, to try on serving or leading or relational experiments or all of that kind of stuff. Because in our current world, we're living in a postmodern world, people understand truth based on their experience. And so we need to provide those experiences, or at least provide opportunities for experience where young people can try things on, right, to see if it fits.
yeah, no, that's really good. That I feel that has been something that has been burdened on my heart to do that, to give the experience of that. I don't do it as well as I should, it's something I'm learning how to do, but I can't agree more on that because giving them that opportunity, like I said, teaches them who they are in leadership. It helps them understand their faith better. That's why since the days that I can remember, we've taken kids on missions trips to do service, to experience it. Sometimes I don't know, how sometimes missions trips can be more of a glorified tourist trip,
Yeah. Yeah.
and white knight salvation hero feelings, but some of them can be effective in training students on stuff. So I really appreciate that. Now, my final question is more of a personal question for you, not really dealing with the topic, but I'm curious as to what are you doing these days to relax? I mean, dude, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
You've been go since the moment I've met you, writing, speaking. I don't think you you take much of a break from it because it's so passionate for you. But what do you do
Yeah.
to relax?
Well, oddly, in the last couple of years, probably over the last 5 years, but really intensified in the last 2 years, I have fallen in love with cooking. I do all the grocery shopping in my home, and I do all the cooking when I'm in town. And I never follow a recipe. I just literally make things up. So it's very experimental, and I find it super therapeutic for me.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that is
Yesterday I made these, I cooked filet mignons, and I homemade a blueberry, blackberry, spicy and sweet sauce to put on them. It was so good.
Did you write it down so you could do it again?
Yeah, I actually started a little food Insta because I was posting pictures of my food stuff too often on my regular stuff. So I had to kind of migrate it all off to its own place.
Oh man, that's awesome though. That sounds like a lot of fun. Man, Marko, I really appreciate you. I appreciate what you do for the kingdom. I appreciate your wisdom, insight, your books, your speaking. All of those have been a part of my ministry journey, and I greatly appreciate it for sure. Is there any other thing that you feel like you want to share before we sign off? Something that's been on your heart or anything of that nature?
I don't think so. Just blessings on everybody. If you're a freaked out parent listening to this and you're wondering what's going on, encourage you to prioritize creating positive memories with your kid and keeping lines of communication open, right? And that normally happens in quantity time, right? Quality time is a subset of quantity time.
That's a good word. That's a good word. Hey, well, thanks again, Marko, for joining.
You bet.
It's a pleasure to have time with you and pick your brain a little bit. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Cultivating Candor, a community for honest Christian discussion, content, and commentary. We look forward to seeing you next time on episode 5 when we interview Tim Meyer about deconstruction and the journeys of faith. See you then.